Welcome back, friends, for episode 28 of Beyond Bricks and Mortar. Now, we took the last few weeks off, a little time to recharge, regenerate, get back into the groove, but here we are, and I have a tremendous lineup over the next few weeks. Some of the most powerful women in the real estate business, varying not only in different markets, but also in different stages of their real estate career. My hope and my intention with this series is to empower as many people as possible across a wide array of stages in their real estate career. Today, I'm joined by Kelly Burchill. Kelly is a third-generation South Tampa native with over 10 years of TV news experience, followed by close to a decade in real estate experience. After that time spent in TV news and transitioning into real estate, Kelly deployed her confidence and sharp interpersonal skills to build trust with clients and to do a lot of deals. We go deep and share a lot of value in this conversation. One of the things I found particularly interesting was Kelly's direct experience with the tremendous insurgence of buyers during the COVID-19 pandemic. We then go even deeper on the residual impact of all of that and how Kelly has been able to develop this incredible network between New York and Tampa, Florida. As always, I'm very excited for you guys to listen and watch this one. I said this somewhere in the episode, but for me, it's incredibly fulfilling to be able to sit down with people like Kelly, who we've only really had one or two conversations in the past, to really get to know them in this context. That's the most fulfilling element of this podcast, the thing I love about it, as well as the overall impact that these conversations have had. But now, without any further ado, here she is, my good friend, my now good friend, Kelly Burchill. Welcome.
Thanks.
How are you?
I'm good. How are
Miss
you?
Tampa.
I know. I'm so excited to be here. I was traveling here from the Upper West Side, and the rush hour on the subway, I was like, okay, this, I remember, is why I don't want to live here full time.
Do you have a place here?
No. We sublet a place on, well, this is our second year in the Upper West Side, but I lived here right out of college.
Oh, okay.
Just for a year. Got it in my blood.
So you know New York.
I know New York.
Yeah.
Although I have forgotten a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long are you in town for?
So we're here for until August 2nd, so a month.
And who's we?
Me and my two baby girls.
Wow.
I mean, they're teenagers, but 13 and 15.
Are they like in camp here in New York, or they're just visiting with you?
Yeah, they're just hanging out.
Nice.
We this is our third year doing it, and we come up and we sublet a place for a month because I'm like, they're out of school anyway, and we're home and I work from home, so of course I'm the one that's with them 24/7, and I'm like, I would much rather be in New York, and they can kind of entertain themselves. They can go walk around. They can do. So that's our summer routine.
Yeah, and if it's it's been really, really hot in New York the last few days. So I imagine if you were in Tampa, you'd be roasting.
Yeah,
right now.
it's unbelievable. But you know what the difference is? We don't walk in this heat.
True.
You know what I mean? Everybody's
you guys
like,
drive
you're
everywhere.
used to it. Yeah, we avoid the heat at all costs.
Yeah.
We drive, and if it's hot, we don't go outside.
Yeah,
You know?
I grew up in the suburbs in Long Island, but my younger brother grew up here in the city.
Okay.
And he's now 21, doesn't even have a permit.
Yeah. Whole different world. My daughter just turned 15 in February, and the day of, you go to get your driver's or your permit.
Well, in Florida, you can get your permit at 12 years old.
No, stop.
It's like you're driving right out of the womb.
But 15, and they all do it. It's funny. She met some people. They met friends here, which I love. Through Sarhant, which is amazing. Violetta, you know Violetta?
Yes, I do know Violetta.
So she, an agent here at Sarhant, she connected. She introduces some of her friends who have teenagers.
That's nice.
I know. So it's they're really
so your girls are building a network already here in New York City.
They are. But what's funny is they were talking to them about the driving thing, and they're like, yeah, no, we don't do that. We don't drive.
Yeah, no, and I leave my car parked on the street for weeks at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my wife and my two girls, I also have two girls, they move over to the Jersey Shore for the summer.
Okay.
So my car just stays there. So no more tickets for the summer. So it's just racks up tickets and
what
tickets.
What part of town do you live in?
I'm on the Upper East.
Okay.
Yeah. So you said this is your second year subleasing on the Upper West?
Yeah.
Nice.
Love it.
So you
We're
like
at
it up there.
like 85th and Central Park West.
And you're here for the month. And you've been working out of the Surrant office. So what is your business kind of slowing down in Tampa this time of year?
It's funny. I think, yes, it definitely does. I would say like June starts to slow down. July's pretty much dead.
Yeah.
Right? Dead enough that like I can work remote, or like I have people on the ground if I have a showing here or there.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely slows down. Does it appear or no?
I think yes and no. There's always transaction volume in the market here in New York City. So there is a little bit of a slowdown to some degree, but at the same time, people are always searching. Information's so accessible to everybody across all markets. So we always have to assume that we need to be ready to show at all times. I put a townhouse on the market in like the first week of July. So typically a bit of a slower time to put a listing on the market. But that being said, the sellers want to sell. There's no reason why, you can't expect to get a couple of showings or some interest during that time of year. Again, people are searching, Street Easy's on everyone's phones, just like anything else.
Yeah.
But I just feel like the seasonality has kind of become a little more irrelevant during our time as real estate agents. It used to be that seasonality was more so based on when brokers were working,
right?
When people were available to show property,
right? And now we're 24/7.
Yeah, exactly. We're all 24/7, kind of all the time. So I just don't think seasonality is as relevant. In fact, even in New York City, I don't think location is as relevant as it once was.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it used to be that people thought of buying a home as location. All the locations in New York City offer pretty much the same conveniences, just in slightly different contexts with different demographics. So, I've had plenty of buyers who have started their search on the Upper East or the Upper West, but have ended up in the West Village. Or Chelsea.
I can see that.
Yeah, because why not? They have all the same perks, great private schools, everything that they need right at their fingertips. The information's all in front of them. But people didn't really know that as much back then. And the market, New York City has evolved, just like other markets.
And you have the most incredible transportation here. Like in Tampa, that is what's lacking.
Yeah. Lately, I've been taking the bus a lot.
Yeah.
I really like the New York City bus.
Do you?
Yeah.
So the only time we take it is, and only because we don't really know enough, but we take it across town, right? Because it's right at our doorstop, and it takes us across the park. And I love it.
Yeah.
It's clean. It's quick.
Yeah. It's clean. It's quick. It's easy.
Yeah.
Now it's Apple Pay. You don't need a Metro card anymore. It's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's kind of jump in to you and your story a little bit.
Okay.
You spent a decade in TV news. How and why did you end up in real estate?
Pure accident.
Oh, really?
Pure accident. I was one of those people that knew from high school that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do TV news, and I just did everything to get there, right?
You've got the personality and, the voice, the presence.
It was great. I loved it, and especially when you are not a mother, right? And then, and I worked Valdosta, Georgia was my first market, like cotton fields, okay? And then I came to New York and worked here for a year, and then went home and finished TV news there.
Oh, you were doing TV news here in New York?
Yeah,
so
not on
really...
camera.
No,
I was like producing.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, so I really lived here, like working in the basement of Fox News and all that. So then in Tampa, my job just kind of dissolved. It was it was a position that came about after like 2008, when everybody was cutting costs and kind of combined local news stations. And then when everybody started, the recovery started happening and people didn't really want to share anymore. Like my main thing was sharing the helicopter, right? I would like dictate where the helicopter went, and instead of 3 stations paying for their own helicopter, we shared one, right? Well, then they're like, okay, we don't like this anymore, and we don't have to do it.
Right.
So that position kind of faded away, and I was like, what do you do after TV news? Like literally, it's like go get a PR job for $20,000 a year. And by that time I had 2 kids. My dad's like, what don't you get your real estate license? And I was like, okay, you know, like
because
I didn't.
that removes stability from your life,
Right.
By switching to real estate,
right. But he was like, you know, you're born and raised here. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like I did it almost as I didn't know what else to do. Right. And just did it, fell in love, and like now I'm angry that I wasted so much time.
I hear that. How long has it been for you now in real estate?
2015. So
2015.
almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Which is crazy.
Which is crazy because I feel like the last 3 or 4 years were probably your craziest years.
Hands down.
Yeah.
I would say it took I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. It took a good 5 years for me to really like establish my business.
I'm the same.
Yeah. In South Tampa, there's very much, I'm sure it's like this here too, but like certain players that have been in the business forever, right? And they kind of were always the ones that were selling, top producers. Everybody just knew them, and it was always them, right?
Like a lot of word of mouth.
Right. Luckily, I was able to get into that brokerage where they all were, Smith & Associates, and that's where I really like cut my teeth, right? I learned everything from scratch. That was frustrating, right? Learning a whole new business where I'm like 10 years in news and I know everything and I'm the manager and and now I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know how to answer a simple question in real estate, right? So I had the best mentors. I was very lucky in that aspect. And then, just kind of grew from there.
I feel like it's nice to walk into something totally fresh and learn from scratch. Like we all feel like we're gonna be in the same place for a really long time. Usually when these changes happen, they kind of come at us like a brick wall.
I can say, looking back, that would be the perspective, right? But I was scared to death.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was scared to death. 2 little babies, right? Like,
how old were they when you made the shift?
I want to say, gosh, they were like, well, okay, so that was almost 10 years ago. So like 5 and 3.
Wow.
And to complete.
You were like in the thick of it.
In the thick of it, right? And like, it's funny because I think I had just figured out the whole mom life and working mom and TV, a crazy schedule with TV news. And then it was like everything was just gone and different, right? But I mean,
well, it's admirable that you were willing to make that type of a shift and put yourself in that type of vulnerable position, knowing it would be hard.
I have to tell you, I look back at that all the time and I'm like, I think people thought I was crazy, right? And thank God I did it.
Are you crazy?
I'm a little bit crazy. No, but you just have to, I'm very thankful that I did. And like, if nothing else, my kids can look at it. So many people in TV news feel stuck. And I'm sure it's like that in a lot of industries, right? Yeah. But in TV news, it's a very toxic business where, you're judged on your looks and like there's a 20-year-old behind you that will do it for like a quarter of your salary. You know what I mean? And it's always like that. And you're reminded of that every day, right?
It's anxiety.
It's, I remember I would say, I'd come home and tell my husband who's corporate finance, like some of the things I would tell him about my day, he was shocked.
Yeah. Right.
And so a lot of people, I think, feel stuck in that industry, and it's not a very happy one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that the way that everything happened, and I can look back and my kids can look and be like, she started from nothing. You know what I mean? Like she literally changed mid-course and just went a totally different direction. And I love that they can like look at that.
Was there like a final straw or something that really pulled you out?
Yeah, are you sensing that?
Yeah.
For sure. So when they dissolved the position, right? They were trying to fit me in to another position, right? And me being the open and honest person that I am, I'm like, okay, I'm not working for this person who I thought was very unethical, and I just wasn't going to do it. And I told them that. And from
was
then
it like
on,
Roger Ailes or something?
It was Fox. I'm just saying.
You mentioned Fox. Were you like invited into Roger Ailes' office?
Stop! No, I'm not that cute. But no, this was in Tampa, and it was a fight. It was a huge fight because then they retaliated because I said, I'm not working for this person. And they put me on the news desk at 4:00 in the morning on a Saturday and a Sunday. It just began like them trying to push me out. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to go, but you're going to pay me to go, because I've done nothing wrong. If anything, you should be thanking me because I've pointed things out. Right. And so it was a very tense, like, couple of months for my family, right? But from the get-go, I knew I was doing the right thing, and that's always kind of been my thing, like even if everybody thinks I am crazy and I'm doing things that other people would just let go, like I'm always gonna do the right thing, even if I'm like making myself tortured, if that makes sense.
Do people in that world generally, or at least like the newscasters we see every day, it's just sticking to kind of Fox as part of the conversation, but like someone like Stu Varney or Sean Hannity, like do these people do well? Do they make good income?
At that level, yes.
Really?
Yeah. And even like local news anchors, right? Like can make in the, I don't know, like 200s or what. I mean, if you think about it, it's funny because we can make that, right?
Right.
And you think about, I don't know, it's weird to think about salaries compared to real estate, right? But but it takes so much to get to that point. It takes starting in Valdosta, Georgia, at $20,000 a year.
Yeah.
And working your way up. And a lot of people
look at like Howard Stern, where he started, all these different small radio stations in Baltimore and DC and Detroit, and then to end up in New York City.
Yeah.
It seems like in media, it's really a long road.
Yeah. For sure. And in the beginning, it's not, it's exciting, especially, you're right out of college. Money's not the most important thing to you. You're not thinking like that. And it's fun, right? But it wears on you. Yeah. For sure.
Have you ever thought of kind of like doing sort of especially being that we're at Sirhan and being able to produce content is really easy for us because Sirhan's so supportive of those initiatives. Have you ever thought of sort of incorporating your skills as a newscaster in this context?
So, yes and no, right? Like, I think part of me is like so traumatized from that
and like
past.
Done with that world, So but you don't keep any passion left for that side of your life.
No, I do, but I think it comes about in, like, I feel like you can kind of see it in my social media, right? I think it comes about in the way that I market and the way that I am, going back to the crazy, I will dig and dig and dig for, like, information to help me get to a seller or to find someone, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like on the phone, asking those burning questions.
Yeah, like, or like just public records, like you wouldn't believe.
So you apply what you learned during that time.
I think so.
But I think where I was going with this question is I genuinely believe that this business is a business that you can't survive in unless you're doing it in parallel with what you really love.
Right.
Like the thing you're actually passionate about. And even then, it's hard enough to create sustainability, but to be able to have any sort of staying power, unless you really are just in love with real estate. Like me personally, real estate is not the thing that wakes me up every morning. Right. It's like being able to be creative in the world of real estate or being able to practice and deploy hospitality because I love taking care of people. So what is it that you would say you're really passionate about? What's your why and how do you deploy that in parallel with the work?
So, I don't know if it sounds silly, but I really am passionate about Tampa and the growth. I really am, because born and raised there, right? Do it. I have seen it, go from nothing to like what it is now. And I love talking to people about the growth of it. I love trying to get people interested in it, paying attention to it, where like as most people think of Florida and they think of Miami. And I want to pull my hair out because I'm like, what about Tampa? Right?
Tampa's on the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Wow.
Completely different
really
vibe.
Different. Yeah.
Completely different vibe. But really cool. And I love helping. One of my favorite things is helping like families, moms like me who are moving from Seattle, who have no clue, right? Like where they're going to go. And I love guiding people to do that. I love the marketing aspect of it. I do like getting back to where you were going with the Sirhan thing. I would love to do that. I feel like I need to explore that more and what that looks like,
Yeah. When I was at Element, my former partner and I, we produced a show for a short period of time. It was like, I think we did it for like 3 or 4 months, and then it became just a little bit too much to be able to produce it regularly on a weekly basis. But we would do a live for about 30 minutes where we would sit at a table just the same way as 2 newscasters, and we had like a set of overlays.
Yeah.
And we did this. I forgot the name of the show, but there was a show on ESPN, or there is a show on ESPN where it's like they choose a topic and they don't speak about it for more than a minute.
Okay.
And there's like a list of 5 topics. They roll through each one for like a minute.
Is that Sports Center?
It's part of Sports Center. I just don't remember what the
okay.
name of the show is, but that was kind of the theme of it.
Okay.
We would sit in front of the table, and people reacted really, really well to it, and we would field questions that come in while we're on live, but it became too much to produce it. But when I think about you and your history, I'm like, this is the perfect context for you.
I would love to do something like that. Where I get caught up is the production of it, right? Like if I had and that's another thing. Like I wish I was in New York full time when it comes to just the support of Sirhan, right?
Yeah.
Because I would take so much advantage of the studio's crew. You know what I mean? Like I think that's the greatest asset of Sirhan, and I don't have that in Tampa, unfortunately. But I would love to do that. I think that would be amazing, and
it's a lot of work. I mean, before coming to Sirhan, I self-produced everything, all my content. I taught myself how to edit video, how to do graphic design, all of this stuff.
Where were you putting your content? Everywhere, or
pretty much everywhere.
Like you said, did you say you did it live or no?
Yeah, we had a segment of what we did that was live. I released. Yeah, we did Instagram. I released videos on YouTube regularly. Facebook at the time was still pretty low priced attention, so we were grabbing a lot of attention there. I was pretty much the first person vlogging in the world of real estate. I even have Ryan on my vlog making fun of me for vlogging in like 2016.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really, really funny, and I've showed that clip to him a couple times. He had like a beard and everything, and he's like, "What is this? What are you doing?" But it's funny, And then coming to Sirhan, obviously, when you do have production ideas, it does take the work off your plate because they are so supportive in that context. But even then, it's hard to create consistency. For me, again, like what I love is the creativity. That's why I do this. That's why I self-produce this podcast.
Right.
Like Studios isn't directly involved in this.
Right.
They're always open to helping. But yeah, this is like the thing that keeps me kind of in it.
Yeah.
Having the forum, the opportunity to speak to someone like you, for example. You and I don't really know each other that well. I think we met once or twice in the context of like a Sirhan event.
Right.
And having the opportunity as colleagues to get to know each other in this forum, that's what I love.
Yeah.
Because by the time you leave this room, we'll be friends.
Right. Oh, I kind of thought we already were, but that's okay.
We were, but it'll be like sealed. It'll be sealed in stone, set in stone.
Yeah, right. No, I totally get it. Yep.
You seem to deploy a good measure of confidence in your work. I'm sure part of that comes from your history being okay in front of a camera. Has your confidence ever failed you?
Oh my God, that's a good one. I don't know the answer to that. I want to say no, but I feel like there might be some.
Well, we all make mistakes in our work, but maybe a better way to answer that question is there a mistake or a learning experience, especially in the early stage of your career, that you particularly remember?
Oh, you put it like that. 100 things come to mind. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many in real estate. We're talking about real estate. Sure. Yeah. So many things come to mind. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. All I can say is let me tell you this story. This is hilarious. So the very first open house that I ever did. Open houses are huge in Tampa, right? Like
you actually get turnout at them.
You actually get turnout. It's not like by appointment only, right? put a sign in the yard, had my mom with me because I still had my crazy news brain. I thought somebody was going to come to my open house and kill me. Because that's what happens in news, right? Everybody's getting shot. Put my sign in the ground. This woman comes in, wants to buy the house. $1.35 million house. I don't even know how to write a contract, right? So I would say my very first mistake in real estate was that deal, because I had people, I don't want this to come across in the wrong way, but like I was thinking that people just naively were going to help me, right?
Yeah.
Like these, and it was more like I found out that they helped me and guided me through writing the contract because I didn't even know how to write the contract at that point, right? And so this was going to be my buyer, first deal, right? And they came to my broker at the end and they were like, okay, now how are we going to get paid? And they wanted to take the commission from me. So just learning things like that, right? Like just learning a whole new business of expectations and the way things work. That definitely was eye-opening.
So I want you to know that I asked this question in a similar context to pretty much everyone who comes on this show, especially the real estate agents. Mm-hmm. And all of them have the same initial reaction that you did. It's like, wow, there's so many. Like when I asked this question to Brandon Bogart, he's like, do you have all day?
Right.
You know?
Right.
But my point in that is that we are, as real estate agents, we're molded by the mistakes we make.
Yes, 100%. And every single deal is so different. You learn something new. I don't care if you've been in the business for 20 years.
Yes.
You know, something is always different, or this has never come up and you need to speak with somebody who's done that. I mean,
yeah. And I think the way you reach a point where you enter kind of a state of flow with your work, where you don't necessarily make mistakes because you know how to cover the ground along the way, but it's that realizing that we're never fully enlightened.
Yeah.
We never know it all.
Right.
We always can keep learning.
You know what? And I think that is one of my biggest, I don't even know what you would say, but I like to be upfront with that. With my clients, you know what I mean? With everybody. I like to tell people, like last night I met with a Serhant colleague and two people who want to invest in Tampa. And the first thing I say to them is like, okay, look, this really isn't my jam, right? Like I don't really do investors and stuff like that. Like mine is single family homes, luxury homes. Yes, right? And so I'm happy to have a conversation with you and I'm happy to tell you about Tampa and help, but like, please know up front, like this is not my forte. What are you laughing at?
I'm listening to you.
Would you not do that?
Well, I think that it's a conversation I feel like I have had before.
Right.
I find that the real estate business is a different business than the selling homes business.
100%.
Almost as if it can be broken out into its own category. Because real estate is a business that's done with the brain. It's a numbers business. It's analytical. If the numbers make sense, if the underlying factors are there, then you make a deal. Mm-hmm. But homes is emotional. And I think that you, by saying this, what I hear, and I could be mistaken, but what I hear is that you like to tug on the heartstrings. You like the emotion that's underlying in the deal, and you like taking care of people.
That, you just put it better than I could have ever said.
It's most of us, though. Most of us, we just don't realize that's really why we're in it. Mm-hmm. If I said to you, hey, I want you to represent my retail space in Tampa, you'd be like, okay, like I could do it, but you know,
like, is it worth it? Do I want to?
Right. Like, and it doesn't matter what the commission looks like. It's more like you don't, all of a sudden, if you picture a board full of buttons, it's like you just turned off the passion button.
1,000%.
Right.
1,000%. And I'm kind of, I guess it's more about like, so when you put it like that, it's more like knowing my lane and staying in it, and I'm really good at it. Right. Yeah. And like, I don't want to, like, it's funny because my husband is, like I've said, is the finance guy. Right. And he's the numbers guy. Analytics. And I told him yesterday, I was like, I'm going to meet with these investors and, because they always want to know ROI and all this. And I'm like, don't you want to know the school district?
Yeah. Right.
You know? And it's funny because he was like, that's what I want to do. Like, I live for the investors.
But actually, the home buyer who is mindful of who the person is that's going to rent that property, that's a much more savvy investor in that context.
Right.
Like if I sat down with you and I spoke about that, like what schools are nearby, who's the target demographic, that's what I'm thinking of in the context of investment. Because if I were to buy a home in Tampa, it's not like I would sell it in a year or two. It'd be a long hold. But I imagine that there was a huge insurgence of investors in Tampa or second home buyers during and after the pandemic.
Oh, yes. That, I think you said, we started this. That's really when everything boomed.
Yeah. So you were in it
crazy.
for like 5-6 years and then everything exploded.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is going to be do you think that effect will sustain through time?
1,000%. In
Really?
Tampa, I really do. I really do.
What do you think it was? You think it just opened the floodgates on what Tampa really is?
Yep, exactly. I feel like people, COVID opened their eyes to it, right? And then the people who moved there now are loving it. They're telling their friends and families. Businesses are moving there for tax reasons, and we still have a lot of room to grow in Tampa. We're not Miami where it's so overcrowded, and you know what I mean? We are still on the way up, which I think is so exciting.
I noticed that what's the average home price in Tampa? Is it still below $1 million?
That's such a tricky question. Where I work in this little secluded area, it's not. It's probably right around $1 million.
Yeah.
But yeah, in like the greater Tampa area, I think it's like around 500.
Yeah. Well, you've done about $60 million in sales in your career, but that's comprised of a lot of transactions.
Yes and no. I would say my average is right around $1 million.
Yeah. So how many homes, do you know the number of how many homes you've sold?
I'm not that numbers person, remember?
I feel like I've only recently learned these numbers about myself, but I've sold just over 100 homes, about $520 million.
Yeah, I would love to know. $520 million?
Yeah, but it's New York.
Yeah.
It's New York. Like the highest price home I ever sold was $20 million.
Dear God.
So it's a different market.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that like we could be sitting here, I could be saying 550 million, 520 million. You're saying 60 million, but it doesn't change at all. Like, the measure of the real estate agent.
Yeah,
the numbers...
it's funny that you say that because I was sharing my contact with someone, and I have like a little like bio in it, and it says the 60 million, right? And maybe it was you I was sending the contact to yesterday. I don't know, but I was like, 60 million, that sounds like nothing up here, right? And like in Tampa, I'm proud of that number.
I would be curious of what the number of homes or actual transactions you did.
Yeah, I'll have to look.
Because that's an interesting number.
I'll have to. It's not huge.
But if it was 100, let's say, if it was 100 homes, like over 100 homes sold, like that's an interesting number to me. Because the more transactions you do, the more experience you have.
Yeah.
Like in New York City, you can do 5 deals for 50 million.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Right.
Like that's.
Right. Oh.
So it's interesting.
I should look at that.
That to me is more representative of a real estate professional's experience
than the
volume. Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, in New York City, a $500,000 deal can be twice as hard as a $20 million deal.
So you know what? Well, first of all, the lower the price.
Oh yeah, because you're dealing with first-time buyers, you're dealing with parents helping children buy, you're dealing with a demographic that asks a lot more questions because every dollar really matters.
Understandably so.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
But very much more involved.
Yeah.
I made up my mind when I got my license that I was going to sell $1 million houses. And the reason I did that was because, well, that's just the neighborhood that I live in. I was born, and I hate saying that because it's not like we, bought $1 million house. No, it's evolved to that, right? But it's the same work. If you're like, I realized that when I was in my little real estate licensing class, if you sell a $500,000 house or a $5 million house, it is the same exact process.
Yeah.
So why would you not, I just set my mind. I was like, well, I would much rather sell 2 bigger homes than 6 smaller ones. You know what I mean?
And as your career evolves, you earn the right to not only do bigger deals, but to do easier ones.
Yeah.
It really comes with the territory the same way.
I remember talking to somebody in my first brokerage about that, and she was like the relocation manager or something, right? And I went to her and I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to sell in South Tampa. And she's like, everybody thinks that. I was like, no, but I am. Like, I'm born and raised here.
There's
like
that confidence.
But you know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is. I remember her telling me that, and I was like, well, that'll be the last time I ever talk to you. Like, tell me I can't and watch me.
Yeah.
That's my personality.
Love that.
Tell me I can't. That's
Love
all
that.
I need.
That's like, that reminds me of Trisha Lee. She had this very similar attitude,
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to like me, but you will respect me.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I love that. Is there, I find that I get LinkedIn messages all the time from young people who are looking to learn and get into our business.
Yep.
I feel like there are a couple of very blanket pieces of advice I give to everybody. Most of the time it's centered around don't do it.
Okay.
Because this business is brutal, and most people don't really see that because they base their evaluation, their judgment on our business from all the content they see.
Right.
Is there a sort of singular piece of advice you give to people who are interested in getting into your business and your market?
I don't think I get the question of if I should. It's more like once I have, how do I go about it?
What do you do?
Right? And I would say that my number one piece of advice, and actually Ryan just posted something about this the other day, and I was like, yes, that is me. But put your blinders on and do not pay attention to anything else that anybody's doing.
Right.
Right? Because competition, I think, is like, it can kill you, right? Like if you look around and you're like, well, she just got licensed and she just sold that, or she does this and da da da. Like, you can't do that to yourself, right? You do the work and you just have the belief that it's gonna all work out, right?
I wish that competition was less of a factor in our business. It's so deeply embedded in so many of the professionals and so many of our colleagues.
Yeah.
But the truth is, if we removed that from the equation just a little bit and we looked at the deal, there's a buyer's agent and there's a seller's agent.
It's collaborative.
Yeah. Both of us are after, if you're representing the buyer and I'm representing the seller, our interests here are aligned.
Right.
We both want to get a deal done. We both want to do right by our client.
Right.
We both want to make some money.
Right.
And we both want to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
We want to be happy with the work we're doing.
Right.
Knowing that, shouldn't we just collaborate?
Right. Right.
Like, a real estate agent who walks into a showing and just shits all over the property in front of their client just to look good. It's like, congratulations, now you look good, and now we don't have a deal.
Right. Yep.
I think that's where Ryan comes from when he says, like, our job is to work for the deal.
Yep.
At the end of the day. But I think if our business was more collaborative and was more candid, tell me what your client wants to pay for this asset. Let me see what I could do. Tell me what your client needs. Let me see how close I can get there.
Where do you think that comes from? And the reason I ask is because, I'll say you have a listing and you have the buyer's agent call, and there's people who are the most pleasant from the get-go, and there's people who want to show, I don't even know how to say it, right?
Those are people who don't actually want to get deals done. They just want to represent power.
And do you think it's their lack of confidence in negotiating, or what do you think that is? Why do they have to act like that?
There can be a measure of insecurity that is built into that, but I think at the end of the day, it's just ego.
Yeah.
I think people really want to feed their ego. And that's why for us, another big part of the selling homes business and being a people person is understanding the personality you're dealing with on the other side of the deal sheet. Because if you want to stay in the driver's seat, because we always do, we want to stay in the driver's seat of the deal, you have to feed into that. Some people need to be fed in their ego.
Right. I had a thought and it left me. Something that Ryan, it did. Something that Ryan always says. About the person who cares the least.
Yeah, the person who cares the least has the most power. I think that's very true in a negotiation. Yeah. And I've worked a couple of deals with Ryan where
like against.
No, well, we've seen each other on the other side of a deal sheet before, and we've pitched against each other like 12 or 13 times. I only won twice. Before Sirhan? Yeah, way before Sirhan. Yeah. So I've known Ryan a long time. We've always known each other and had a really, really nice rapport, and we pitched against each other. I counted at one point. It was like 12 or 13 times.
Here we go again.
Because my whole 98% of the business I've done over the 13 years I've been in this has been round two. It's been taking over after another broker. So Ryan and his team were pitching all those listings too.
Right.
I only won like 2 or 3 out of those, but yeah, it's
the person that cares the least.
The person that cares the least. So when I worked with Ryan on a couple of deals when I was in Sirhan, the way he would answer an offer email, it would be like one-liners. I was used to like writing out the thoughts of the seller to help it like feel sincere, and he would be like, the counter is X.
Yes.
Let us know.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's interesting. I like hearing that because, that's his personality anyway, right? Yeah. Like an emoji or like a 2 words.
Yeah,
yes,
quick.
Right? It's interesting to hear that that's the case in a deal.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't think it's because he's busy. I think that's strategic.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, I think it's strategic, and I learned a lot from that. And there are some times where you need to come off as tough. Like, this is the counter. This is it.
So it's funny that you say that because a lot of times I feel like I am like that, and I am wondering if I'm lacking in my negotiation skills because, you get a counter from the seller and it is what it is, right? Yeah. So I'm always kind of like that where I'm just like, here it is, right?
Yeah.
And not a way to be controlling or in power or anything, just like that's what it is.
I've always considered the response, like the email response, I always think about it like you have to assume the other side is going to forward this to the seller. Mm-hmm. So you want to give them something that's worth forwarding, like that they don't have to rephrase.
Some background or like what the thought process was.
Yeah. And now I've taken to most of the time speaking to, again, if you're representing the buyer, I'm representing the seller, you make an offer, and before I send a counter, I call you and I talk it through. I'm like, listen, I'm going to give you something you could forward to your seller. This is the number, but listen, just bring me a counter. There's more movement here. Again, this is the collaboration. Right. This is not just me being like, well, they have to come up or we're done. This is me telling you, like, there is more, even if you just inch up.
Yeah.
And I learned that from Ryan too. Back in when I was at Element and he made an offer on something I had on behalf of like an NFL player.
Right.
And he's like, we're going to make you this offer. I know it's low, but just get me a counter. Even if it's $50,000, I'll get you another counter. Even if we have to play ping pong for a little while, we will meet somewhere in the middle. It's like you really appreciate that there is that collaborative spirit.
Yeah. That goes such a long way.
Yeah.
That goes such a long way. I don't think that, when people hire agents that they even really consider the relationships that they have in the market. And that's such a huge deal.
Yeah. It's a big part of what we do. That's why I think the principles of like hospitality are so important in our business. I think my why has always been this kind of like, I want to be the bridge between creativity and hospitality in our business. And I see that as like the buy side and the sell side. The sell side being creativity. You have to deploy creativity to sell homes. You have to be able to tell a story. You have to be able to show a home in its best light. Most brokers don't do that, especially in outer markets like yours, where it's not as loaded with agents. Like here we have 50,000 agents and there's a lot of competition. So taking the lifestyle approach is a little bit more common here. But like I looked up a bunch of listings in your market before you came on this show, and so many of them are marketed like shit. And that's because people still don't understand that storytelling. Like the deal starts at the very first click, the first time someone clicks on your listing, which is why that first image is the most important image.
Can I interrupt you and tell you that's why I am at Sirhan? I left the brokerage that I was at that was the number one in South Tampa, always has been, and very well known, and again, very grateful, learned everything I learned there, but they were not evolving. They are they've done everything for the last 50 years the same way, and they're the top, and so they don't see a need to do anything differently, right? And again, they have those 5 top agents that are always going to get the listings. But I wanted that storytelling. I wanted, and it became more and more evident that our 2 ways of doing business were not aligned. And that's what I was really, really intrigued by Serhant.
Yeah, I think it changes the promise that we make to clients. It's not like, I feel like we can never promise a client that we'll get them a certain price unless we know they're really pricing to sell. But we can promise the speed in which the job gets done through this.
And the effort that we put in versus the put a sign up and wait for them to come.
We can confidently say that by doing the work and focusing on traffic, on interest, on attention, that we can get it done faster than anyone else. Because more people will click, more people will come and visit, more opportunity there on the table.
Right.
But yeah, and kind of stepping back, being that bridge between buyer and seller being storyteller and buyer being hospitality. Like, buying a home is a huge decision for so many people, regardless of the context. So being able to just help the person feel like they're in good hands, even if you don't represent them, like, listen, if you're working with me in this context, you will get full transparency, full honesty, and you should know that you're in good hands.
Right.
I think like that's the map.
I've never thought of it like that, creativity and hospitality, and I love that.
Yeah, we are the bridge between those 2 worlds, because whether we're representing the seller or not, when a buyer comes in, you have to make them feel comfortable. If you don't, they'll 100%. Walk.
Yep.
So, what's next for you?
My New York license.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you want to start? You want to go to the major leagues?
I mean, I don't know what I want to do with it necessarily, but I want to have it. And my goal is, and it always has been, like, once I raise my babies and they leave me to go to college, I want to live in New York and Tampa. I want to be in both places, right?
Yeah. And do you have a team in Tampa?
No, it's just me.
I was going to say, because if you work now on building your team that can become a sustainable force in Tampa, then you can come to New York, build your team here, and then your time is just spent flying between markets, meeting with clients.
Yeah, I need to work on that. I'm not a huge team person. I've been on one before that was really traumatizing.
But that's probably what would make you a great leader.
You know what? Brandon, I love him and Mal, and I want to learn from them and build a team. Yeah. And I think they are the people to watch do that.
I couldn't agree more. And when I was building my team and I was figuring out what, like, the commission structure would be with my team, I literally copied their team's structure because it's very generous, and I think that's important. I only hire new agents, people who are learning from the start. I like to train new people. But yeah, they're brilliant, and their dynamic is unique and brilliant.
I know. Yeah, so that's the goal. Like, and no time frame. Like, when it happens, it happens. But it's more like a preparing when my children leave me to have the next part of my life, right? And I want it to be in both places.
Yeah.
Which was part of the draw, obviously, of Serhant.
I love that. That's great. And you're technically the founding member of the Tampa office, are you not?
So I think there was one before me, but I'm in South Tampa, which is different.
Got it. Understood. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm still familiarizing myself. Yeah. But you're sure to be the person I call when I end up in Tampa.
Yeah.
I've never been to Tampa.
Oh my God. Okay, we're going to work on that.
I mean, listen, my mother lives in Bal Harbor, Miami. My father lives in West Palm Beach.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time in Florida.
I know. Yeah. Do you understand? This is my passion project. Like, everybody like you and everybody who's like, Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, I'm like, I'm going to get you.
Maybe what we'll do is, maybe next year we'll do a round 2 of this podcast, but I'll come to Tampa and we'll do it there.
That would be amazing.
That'd be cool, right?
Yeah.
Just bring me somewhere where there's a good view.
For sure. Oh, as I'm looking at your view of bricks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's New York for you.
Hey, at least you have a window.
Bricks and mortar. That's it.
Oh, my God.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming up to Midtown for me.
Yeah, I loved it. And I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you sign the wall for me?
I would love to.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Let me give you this. And then before you do it, I'm going to bring the camera over.
Okay, let's do it.